This began back in February when I was 18. I've always looked much younger than I really am, thanks to being extremely short and not very curvy. I'm afraid to say that I think my overall childlike appearance is what initially drew him to me. I met him at work. He was a new employee, tall, with a muscular build and tannish skin. I was homeschooled, and as a consequence, I'm painfully shy and socially awkward. I have a hard time starting a conversation with anyone, so I kind of just wait for someone else to make the first move, which is what this guy did. He introduced himself as Corey and talked with me about our favorite music genres and bands. Turns out we liked a lot of the same ones. He seemed like a pretty normal guy overall, and for the next few weeks, things were great. Then one day he asked if I had a boyfriend. I told him I didn't, and he immediately asked me out. I'm a lesbian, but I live in the South, so I didn't really want to out myself at my job. I politely declined, saying that I wasn't ready for that sort of relationship. But it didn't end there. He began calling me by pet names such as darling or babe, in spite of my requests for him to stop. He sent me a series of uncomfortable emails. The first was him begging me to never stop loving him and to stay with him forever. I, again, reminded him that we weren't a couple. His response was that he knew I loved him, followed by 10 more desperate pleas that I never leave him. Feeling thoroughly creeped out by that point, I tried to come up with a way to end it. Talking to my boss didn't do any good, as he refused to change either of our schedules or talk to Corey about any of my concerns. My attempts to tell Corey I wasn't interested in a romantic relationship just went in one ear and out the other. By now, Corey was starting to open up to me a little more about his life and worldviews. He claimed his father was the leader of an infamous group of criminals that had murdered tons of people. I have no idea if that was actually true or not, but if it was, I guess it would explain a lot. Corey told me that he'd been in trouble with the law before as well for staking out an elementary school playground and taking pictures of the kids. One day, he comes into work really upset. His best friend didn't want to talk with him anymore because all he ever talked about was me. By then, I had barely been acknowledging him. I just tried to do my job as he talked at me, occasionally nodding when it seemed necessary. The idea that he had become so preoccupied with me that he was alienating his friends disturbed me. His third reveal was that he was a vampire. He genuinely believed that he was a fantasy creature. He showed me the scars on his wrists, explaining that he cut himself in order to drink his own blood. Then he asked if he could have some of my blood. I had no fucking idea what to say and pretty much just stared at him, dumbfounded. Soon after that, something kind of strange happened. I don't really know for sure, and I may be jumping to conclusions now that I know more about this creep, but I think he tried to drug me. I went to get my water cup only to find that it wasn't on the counter where I thought I'd left it. After looking around for a couple seconds, Corey handed it to me. I thought nothing of it. Working in a kitchen can get hectic, and I figured I'd just forgotten where I'd left it. But shortly after, I started to feel really off. I was super nauseous and dizzy. I suddenly felt really tired, and I was having trouble holding onto the utensils that I was using to cook. Corey was now encouraging me to help him get something from the freezer. I have a fear of vomiting, so my first thought was that I was terribly ill and that I was about to throw up at work. I was having trouble speaking, but I told Corey I couldn't help him because I didn't feel well. I took off for the bathroom. The idea that I'd gotten some sort of stomach flu caused me to have a panic attack. I think that the anxiety attack was the only reason I didn't end up passing out. Again, I don't know if he actually drugged me, but the symptoms I experienced, along with his persistence to get me to come with him to the freezer, seemed to point in that direction. The week after that, I got off work early, so I went to one of my favorite stores in the area. After I'd left, Corey begged to be let off early as well and followed me into the store without my knowledge. I didn't realize he was there until I noticed a camera flash. He had followed me to take pictures of me. I yelled at him to knock it off, and that was when he noticed the book I was looking at. It was about life as an LGBT individual. He proceeded to flip his fucking shit, demanding to know if I was gay. I told him it wasn't any of his business what I was. His response was to launch into a jumbled and homophobic rant about how I needed to cure me. In the middle of it, I started to cry. This guy had harassed me at work for months now, and here he was acting like I was the sick one. He proceeded to do a 180 faster than the speediest of politicians. He insisted he hadn't meant to upset me and thought I let him hug me to make me feel better. I told him I just wanted him to leave me alone. He didn't. He followed me all through the store. He explained to me that I owed him sex because he'd lost his best friend because of me. He confessed that this wasn't the first place he had followed me in. He found me at the grocery store with my mom one day. He went into great detail about exactly what she said and what I had been wearing, getting everything correct. Right down to the little eyeball keychain I had on my belt loop and the Hemingway house shirt my mom had. It continued until my dad finally showed up to get me. I told my dad about how much Corey had upset me, and my dad tried to cheer me up, but I don't think he really picked up on how scared I was. I was scared that he would tell other people at work I was gay. I was scared that he knew where my mom and I shopped. I was scared that he would rape me. He was a good 2 feet taller than me, and I was barely 100 pounds when soaking wet. I couldn't stand a chance if he decided he wanted to attack me. I started to dread going to work more than ever. On days I knew he'd be there, my stomach would twist into knots of concern and worry. Finally, he didn't show up one day, and another girl who worked there explained that he had been fired. He had had a complete meltdown one day and cursed out our boss. But it didn't end there. Over the next couple of weeks, when he knew that the manager wouldn't be around, he'd come in. He'd just stand at the front counter and stare into the kitchen, watching me. On a few occasions, I saw him holding up his phone, and I'm pretty sure he was taking pictures of me. That lasted a couple of weeks and stopped abruptly. Eventually, I found out what happened from one of Corey's relatives who also worked at that location. Corey was in police custody. He had drugged and raped a girl. I felt sick when I heard the news. She was only 12 years old. To this day, I wonder what would have happened if he hadn't been fired. If I'd gone into the freezer with him when he'd asked, I wonder if he had attacked me. Would he have left that little girl alone? Corey, you are a disgusting creep, and I hope you never, ever get out of prison. But if you ever do, let's not meet again.